They think you don't know. They think you're just another mind in the crowd. Easy to read, easy to influence. But what if, by the end of this video, you were the one in control? What if you could walk into any conversation, any negotiation, any debate, and already know how it ends? Because the truth is, there are mental tricks hidden in plain sight that most people will never understand. They're used quietly, in boardrooms, interviews, and even friendships. And those who master them, they win, every time. This isn't just about being smarter, it's about thinking differently, strategically. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover how to use psychological influence without being manipulative, how to read people before they speak, and how to guide any interaction without seeming like you're trying. These aren't ordinary tips. These are the kinds of tools psychologists, spies, and power players use behind closed doors. And today, they're yours. You'll learn why saying less actually gives you more power. You'll discover how silence, yes, silence, can dominate a room louder than any voice. You'll find out why asking the right kind of question can give you more control than giving the perfect answer. Most people chase charisma, but this is precision thinking. A mind game with rules nobody teaches you. Did you know that simply mirroring someone's words or posture can make them trust you without realizing it? Or that you can spot a liar just by watching their feet? There's more to body language than crossed arms and fake smiles, and the deeper cues are the ones even seasoned liars forget to hide. This isn't guesswork, it's backed by decades of behavioral science, wrapped in centuries of silent strategy. Welcome to Narrative Society, where knowledge meets power. Subscribe now, because we're just getting started. Before we talk about the mental tricks used to outsmart others, we need to understand what the game actually is. Outsmarting isn't about being the loudest or even the most knowledgeable person in the room. It's about reading the invisible rules others are playing by and quietly changing them. It's the art of understanding how people think, then using that to steer their decisions without force or resistance. Outsmarting is less about confrontation and more about subtle guidance. It's mental judo, using their weight, their momentum, and their assumptions against them. The truth is, most people aren't thinking as much as you think they are. The human brain is lazy by design. Psychologists call it the cognitive miser model. That means our minds conserve energy whenever possible. We don't analyze every detail. We rely on shortcuts, mental habits, patterns, automatic responses. It's efficient, but it also makes us vulnerable. Because if someone knows which shortcuts you take, they can predict your choices before you even know you're making them. These shortcuts are everywhere. When someone smiles at you, you feel more comfortable. When you hear a product is almost sold out, you feel urgency. When you see others buying something, you assume it must be good. These are not random reactions. They're predictable behaviors, triggered by hidden principles. And once you know them, you can influence people without pressure or deception. You simply guide their shortcut. That brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, the 6 principles of persuasion. These were defined by Dr. Robert Cialdini after years of research into how people say yes. These principles aren't theories, they're used by salespeople, marketers, politicians, and negotiators every day. And once you know them, you'll start to see them everywhere. The first is reciprocity. It's simple. When someone gives you something, you feel the need to give back. This is hardwired into human behavior. It's why free samples work. It's why charities send you small gifts in the mail. Even when we don't want to give, we often do, just to balance the scales. You can use this subtly. Offer value, share advice, Give kindness first. Most people will feel a quiet pressure to return the gesture, sometimes in ways far greater than what you gave. The second is scarcity. People want what they think they can't have. The rarer something seems, the more valuable it becomes. You've seen it in limited time offers, only 3 left in stock, or exclusive access. But scarcity also applies to attention. When you're too available, people take you for granted. But when you're selective, when your time seems limited, your presence carries more weight. The key is to signal rarity, not in desperation, but in quiet confidence. Next is authority. We trust those who appear to know more than we do. It's why people follow advice from someone in a lab coat, or why titles and uniforms influence our judgment. Authority doesn't always mean actual expertise. Sometimes it's about presentation, posture, tone, certainty. You don't need to be the world's top expert. You just need to communicate with clarity and confidence. When you speak like someone worth listening to, people listen. Then comes liking. We are more easily influenced by people we like. That could mean someone who looks like us, shares our interests, or simply gives us compliments. It sounds simple, but it's powerful. Mirror someone's energy. Find small points of agreement. Show genuine curiosity. People are more open to ideas when they come from someone they enjoy being around. Influence doesn't always start with facts. It starts with connection. The fifth is social proof. When people are unsure, they look to others. It's the logic of crowds. If everyone's doing it, it must be right. This is why testimonials, reviews, and visible popularity drive decisions, but it's also why people follow trends, mimic behaviors, and conform to group norms. If you want to guide someone's choice, don't just tell them, show them that others have already chosen it. Let the numbers speak for you. And finally, consistency. Once someone takes a small stand, they're more likely to keep going in that direction. We like our actions to match our beliefs. If someone agrees to a tiny request, they're more likely to agree to a bigger one later. This is the foundation of long-term persuasion. Ask for a small yes, something easy, something non-threatening. Once they say yes, they start to see themselves as the kind of person who supports your message. And then, their own identity drives their next decision. Now think about this. These 6 principles don't work in isolation. They stack. A message delivered by someone you liking, who appears to be an expert authority, backed by testimonials, social proof, offered for a limited time, scarcity, and framed as a favor, reciprocity. That's almost impossible to resist. Especially if it starts with a small ask, consistency. These aren't just tricks, they're reflections of how the human brain works when it tries to make fast decisions. And remember, the brain prefers speed. That's why these methods work even on highly intelligent people. Intelligence doesn't eliminate shortcuts. It just makes them harder to spot. Even the smartest minds get caught in their own patterns. When you understand these patterns, you don't have to force outcomes. You don't need to argue, push, or beg. You can influence quietly through design, not demand. That's the secret behind the most effective leaders, negotiators, and communicators. They don't try to overpower resistance, they redirect it. And that's the essence of the mind game. Outsmarting isn't about manipulation. It's about anticipation. It's not about lying. It's about framing. It's not about pushing. It's about pulling people into choices they feel good about making. When done right, they don't feel pressured. They feel empowered. And that's where real influence lives. So now that you've seen how our minds follow these invisible paths, let's move deeper. because persuasion is just the beginning. The next mental tactics go beyond influence. They change the entire way you move through the world. Let's talk about two of the most powerful persuasion tactics ever discovered: foot in the door and door in the face. These techniques are subtle, psychological, and work far better than brute force. It begins with a simple idea. People want to stay consistent with their past behavior. If you can get someone to say yes once, even to something small, it becomes much easier to get a bigger yes later. That's foot in the door. Imagine asking a neighbor to sign a petition for clean air. It takes 10 seconds. No real commitment. A week later, you ask them to volunteer for a weekend cleanup. Because they already said yes once, their brain wants to stay consistent. Saying yes again feels natural, even if the second request is much larger. We don't notice this happening in everyday life, but it's everywhere. A child asks for one more cookie. You say yes. Then they ask for 5 more minutes of TV. You hesitate, but you've already been agreeable once. You don't want to seem unfair, so you give in. Salespeople do it too. They offer you a free trial, no cost, no pressure. Once you've said yes to that tiny step, they guide you toward the full package. Because you've already invested a little time or energy, it feels harder to walk away now. The secret is to start small, something non-threatening, something that seems innocent. And once that door cracks open, you widen it without anyone realizing, not through deceit, but through momentum. Now flip the strategy. That's where door in the face comes in. Here, you start with something big, almost unreasonable, a request you expect them to reject. Then, right after, you ask for what you really wanted all along. Let's say a teenager asks their parent, "Can I go on a week-long trip with my friends out of town?" The parent says no, of course. Then the teen follows up, "Okay, just a sleepover at Sarah's house." Then, that second request feels smaller in comparison, more reasonable. The parent might say yes, not because it's different, but because it feels lighter next to what came before. It works because of a psychological reaction called reciprocal concession. When someone backs down from a large demand to a smaller one, we feel like we should meet them halfway too. It's the mind's way of maintaining fairness, even if we don't realize it. Negotiators use this all the time. They begin with inflated prices or strict terms. They expect resistance. But when they lower their demand, even if that lower demand is their original goal, they seem flexible, cooperative, and people respond in kind. The magic lies in contrast. A $100 fee feels expensive on its own. But right after you reject a $500 charge, it feels like a bargain. That's the trick of comparison. What seemed large before now seems small. You're not changing the facts. You're changing the frame. Both these methods, foot in the door and door in the face, are built on the brain's need for internal balance. In the first, we say yes because we've already committed. In the second, we say yes to restore fairness. If you can see which pattern someone is stuck in, you can choose the method that fits best. Now there's another tactic that's even more fun: reverse psychology. It plays on the simple truth that people hate being told what to do. If you push them towards something, they resist. But if you act like you don't want them to do it, they suddenly want it more. Psychologists call this reactance. When our freedom feels threatened, we push back. It's emotional, it's automatic, and it's very, very human. So, what happens when someone says, "You probably can't handle this job, it's really challenging"? Part of your brain immediately thinks, "I can handle it. Watch me." That's reverse psychology. The trick is to say what they don't expect, to plant an idea that they want to prove wrong. Here are 3 clever moves you can use. First, you'll probably say no, and that's okay. This one is gentle, disarming. It lowers defenses. When you tell someone you expect them to say no, they often feel challenged to surprise you. It makes them feel in control, which is exactly when they become open to suggestion. Second, I'm not sure this is for you. You say this when offering advice, opportunities, or even favors. It creates mystery, exclusivity. The other person thinks, why not me? Their curiosity takes over, and suddenly they're asking you to explain more. Third, you shouldn't do this unless you're ready. That phrase sets a trap for the ego. It implies a challenge, a threshold. If they accept, they prove themselves strong. If they decline, they accept self-doubt. Most people lean toward confidence, so even if they were unsure before, they take the leap to avoid feeling weak. You'll notice something interesting here. None of these phrases are aggressive. They're suggestions, hints, shadows of direction, rather than direct commands. That's the power of reverse psychology. It lets the other person feel like the decision was theirs, and that makes the influence even stronger. The more someone feels like they're doing something because they chose to, not because they were told to, the more committed they become, even if you quietly guided them the whole time. This is how expert communicators operate. They don't bark orders. They don't debate endlessly. They set the stage, plant the seed, and let the mind take care of the rest. The foot in the door approach builds agreement slowly, one step at a time. The door in the face strategy shocks the system, then calms it with a softer ask, and reverse psychology flips resistance into cooperation, all by feeding a person's desire for freedom and pride. You don't need to be manipulative to use these tools. You just need to observe, time your requests, shape your words, and most of all, understand that persuasion isn't about overpowering someone. It's about guiding the energy they already have, gently in a direction that benefits both of you. Before we dive deeper into persuasion, let's explore one of the most underrated forces in human decision-making: emotional triggers and framing. The way something is presented changes how we perceive it, not the facts themselves, but their framing. Take this example. A doctor tells you, "This surgery has a 90% success rate." Sounds reassuring, right? Now imagine the same doctor says, "This surgery has a 10% chance of failure." Suddenly, it feels riskier, even though both statements are mathematically identical. That's the framing effect in action. It works because the brain is not purely logical. It responds more to tone and context than raw data. Words create emotional filters. When something is framed positively, we feel safe, hopeful, even optimistic. When it's framed negatively, we feel cautious, anxious, even afraid. Marketers know this well. A yogurt label that says 90% fat-free sells better than one labeled 10% fat. Same yogurt, different story. If you want to persuade others, learn to frame your message strategically. Instead of saying, "You'll lose time and money if you don't act," try, "You'll gain clarity and confidence when you start." Both are true, but the second feels more inviting. Positive framing is especially useful when you want cooperation. Say things like, "Imagine how much better you'll feel," or "This could be your breakthrough." These statements spark imagination and hope. They energize, but negative framing also has power. When used carefully, if someone's procrastinating, saying, "You might miss this opportunity," can be more effective than "It's a great offer." The threat of loss often triggers faster action than the promise of gain. Psychologists call this loss aversion. We fear losing more than we desire winning. It's not just about what you say, it's how you frame it. Set the emotional tone, create the lens through which others view the situation. That's how you steer perception without forcing anything. Now, let's look at another major influence factor: social proof and authority. Humans are tribal. We look to others when we're unsure. If everyone's doing something, we feel it must be right. If someone important endorses it, we feel safer jumping in. That's why testimonials work, why bestseller labels increase sales, why we follow influencers, not just experts. You see someone on stage in a suit with confident body language. They feel like they know what they're talking about. You're more likely to trust them, not just because of their words, but because they carry authority signals. Authority isn't just about position. It's about presentation, tone of voice, posture, eye contact. If you look and sound certain, others are more likely to follow. So when you want someone to listen, establish credibility first. Share a quick win, a relevant fact, or a calm insight. Don't start with a request. Start by proving you understand the situation. That single shift changes everything. Use modeling to guide behavior. If you want people to act a certain way, show others doing it. Say, most of our team already started using this system. It's saving hours each week. That one sentence taps both social proof and efficiency. If you're launching something new, mention past success. Say, last time we tried this approach, results doubled in a month. You're giving people a reason to trust your direction without having to convince them from scratch. But what if the other person isn't playing fair? This brings us to mind manipulation tactics. They're subtle, sneaky, and often hard to detect, especially when they're wrapped in emotion. Take gaslighting. It's when someone makes you question your memory, your reality, even your sanity. You say, "I remember you said this," and they reply, "That never happened." You always twist things. Slowly, you start doubting yourself. That's the trap. The defense? Stay grounded in facts. Keep notes if needed. Trust your gut. And recognize when someone constantly denies your experiences. It's not about truth, it's about control. Next is victimhood manipulation. This one's tricky. The manipulator plays the helpless role, constantly hurt, misunderstood, attacked. They shift guilt onto others, so you feel like the villain even when you're not. If you confront them, they cry. If you set a boundary, they collapse. The goal, emotional leverage. The defense here is emotional detachment. Don't buy into every tear or tantrum. Ask yourself, am I actually responsible for this person's feelings? Or are they using them to avoid accountability? Kindness doesn't mean surrender. Then there's the silent treatment. The manipulator withdraws affection, attention, even presence, until you come crawling back. It creates anxiety. It's meant to make you feel guilty, even if they caused the problem. The defense? Don't chase silence. Respect it. Say, "I'm here when you're ready to talk," and step back. If silence is used as a weapon, don't reward it with apology or desperation. Finally, projection. This is when someone throws their own flaws onto you. They're the one lying, but they accuse you of dishonesty. They're insecure, but they call you needy. It's a psychological mirror meant to shift blame and avoid reflection. The defense: observe patterns. If someone always accuses others of what they themselves do, call it out calmly. Say, "It sounds like you're describing your own behavior." Keep your tone neutral. It breaks the spell without escalating. These tactics aren't always intentional. Sometimes they're habits people develop to protect their own fragile ego, but whether conscious or not, the impact is real, and the only way to defend against manipulation is to stay self-aware, calm, and firm. So whether you're trying to persuade or protect, remember this: emotion drives attention, framing shapes belief, status breeds trust, and clarity protects your mind. These aren't tricks, they're tools, and when used wisely, they can help you stay 3 steps ahead, not by overpowering others, but by understanding how the human mind really works. So, let's wrap it up. You've just learned 10 powerful ways to outsmart anyone, tools that most people never realize are shaping their everyday choices. First, you discovered what outsmarting really means: not tricking people, but understanding how the mind works. Then we uncovered mental shortcuts like the cognitive miser and how your brain avoids effort. We moved into persuasion tactics, learning Cialdini's 6 powerful principles: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, liking, social proof, and consistency. We explored the foot in the door and door in the face techniques, and how subtle requests can shape big decisions. You saw how reverse psychology works, and how to make people do the opposite of what you say. Then came emotional triggers and framing, learning how the way something is phrased changes how it's received. You explored the strength of social proof and authority, and how trust can be built through status and modeling. We revealed common manipulation tactics like gaslighting and projection, and how to defend yourself from each. You learned how to handle smart people, not by overpowering them, but by guiding them with questions and simplicity. And finally, we ended with a reminder: always ask, what's the motive? And use every strategy ethically. Now you know how to think 1 step ahead with clarity, purpose, and power. But we're just getting started. In our next video, we'll show you how to detect when someone is trying to manipulate you before they even finish their sentence. So if you found value here, do us a favor: like this video, subscribe to our channel Narrative Society, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on future insights. Stay sharp, stay aware, and always think smarter.